I once dreamed of making a lot of money, but at 25, money itself nearly ended my life. My name is Danielle. I'm 32 years old, and this is my story. I don't know where you are as you listen to this. Maybe you're lying in bed, staring at the warm yellow light, casting shadows on the ceiling. Maybe you're squeezed into a crowded city bus. Or maybe you're sitting alone in an empty room, searching for one good reason to keep going. Wherever you are, before we begin, give me just 3 seconds to hit that subscribe button so you and I can be friends. So you won't miss any of my real, raw financial stories. And I can be here to listen to yours anytime you need. I'm not telling this story to complain. I'm not here to brag about what I've overcome. I'm telling it because I believe at some point, every one of us has been a victim of money. And if my story can help even one person, just one, avoid the mistakes I've made, then every loss I've suffered will have been worth it. If something in this story speaks to you, stay with me. Maybe you'll find exactly what you've been looking for. I was born in a small village on the outskirts of town. My parents were farmers. Mornings in the fields, afternoons back home, evenings around the fire. My childhood was the sound of frogs croaking in the rice paddies at dusk, the smell of wood smoke clinging to my mother's clothes, the dim light of an oil lamp as we gathered for dinner, boiled vegetables and braised fish. Deep inside, I carried one dream: to leave this village, to make money, and to help people. The year I was accepted into college, my father sold our only buffalo. That buffalo had been the main worker of our family for years. It was my father's third hand, our livelihood. On the day I prepared to leave for school, my father called a trader to take it away. I still remember the sadness in its eyes and the tear that slid down its thick black lashes. My chest tightened, because to me, it was family. But maybe the weight in my heart didn't compare to the look in my father's eyes. There was something indescribable in them. Hope, worry, and the feeling that he was gambling his entire life on me. I packed my small bag, took the money my father gave me, and left for the city, like a bird freed from its cage, my heart full of determination. It was time to create the future I wanted. But life isn't that simple. It's full of traps you can't see until you're already caught. For my first year, I studied while working part-time. I was curious, eager to try any way to make money. At one seminar, I met people older and far more experienced than me. They spoke about business as if it were another world, full of opportunity, wealth, and success. I admired them, and my belief in myself grew stronger as I listened to their speeches, their motivation, their confidence. At that age, when my peers were still buried in textbooks, I had already stepped into a business environment like this. It pushed me further, and I dove in every day. I attended workshops, learning from those ahead of me. I poured all my money into buying the company's products to resell. On afternoons when I didn't have class, I'd ride my bike door to door trying to sell, but no one bought. No one believed a small town girl could sell high-end products. Day after day, I kept trying, kept pushing, but the results never changed. The only difference was I had run out of money. No capital, no tuition, not even enough for meals. I realized this wasn't the path for me. In my second year, I had to take a leave from school. I worked nonstop just to survive and save enough to finish my degree. That night, I sat alone on my bunk bed in the tiny rental room. Outside, the rain pattered against the tin roof. I stared at the calendar. It was a new month, but for me, everything felt over. I thought of my father, of the look in his eyes when he sold the buffalo, and my chest felt like something was pounding from the inside. After graduation, I got a job as a hotel receptionist. The pay wasn't much, but it was steady. I worked 12, sometimes 16 hours a day, saved every penny to send a little home to my parents. 2 years later, I met Jake, an old friend. He invited me to invest in a barbecue restaurant, promising to share profits. I gave him all my savings and borrowed another $2,000 from my brother-in-law. The restaurant was close to my hotel job, so I felt safe trusting him. The first month, he gave me money. By the second and third, he claimed expenses were too high. After 3 months, he disappeared, silently left his sister running the place, without telling me. There was nothing I could do, because our deal had been based purely on trust. In words, that was the second time I lost money, but this time I also carried debt. I told myself, it's okay, just an early lesson. The debt wasn't huge, so I kept working hard at the hotel and took on evening shifts to pay back my brother-in-law quickly. A year later, I cleared my debt, even had $5,000 in savings. If things had stayed that way, maybe my life would have been peaceful. But I didn't know. This was only the prelude to my life's worst tragedies. One afternoon, I met Eric, a man I knew from college. He invited me for coffee. When I arrived, the first thing he said was, "You know, in the 10 minutes I was waiting for you, I made $200. That sentence was like a spark dropped into dry hay. He told me about an online game. I had never heard of it and foolishly believed it was the fastest way to make money. That night, I deposited money and started playing. I was hooked, playing every day, never putting my phone down, even stealing moments at red lights on the road. One day, just on the way from home to work, I won $3,000. I had never seen money come so easily. My hands shook, my heart pounded, and my head spun with euphoria. I forgot to eat and barely slept. My mind drowned in dreams of wealth and the thrill of winning. I thought just a few more months and my life would change forever. The easier the money came, the higher my greed soared. But it was a disaster. Soon came a streak of crushing losses. I lost all my money, borrowed from friends and acquaintances, lied to borrow more. And only when there was no one left to borrow from did I finally set the phone down. That was when I woke up from the dream, but I wasn't truly awake. My vision was blurry, my body drained, after days and nights glued to my phone. Now, I had to face massive debt and a broken body. Some nights, I'd lie on my bed, staring at the blank, white ceiling under a dim yellow light. In my ears, my heartbeat thumped, slow, heavy. I closed my eyes and wondered if I'd disappeared by morning. What then? For a month, I lived like someone whose blood had been drained. No appetite, no words, just wanting to vanish, but still haunted by one fear. Maybe it was the memory of my father's hopeful eyes and my mother's endless work back home. I sat up and started watching motivational videos, learning, really learning about money. I went back to work with the same dedication I once had. Every paycheck wasn't much, but to me then, every bill was like a brick, slowly rebuilding the wall I had torn down. 2 years after leaving the online game, I owned my own small hotel and ran a homestay. That was probably the most honest and profitable period of my life. But then, the pandemic hit. Hotels had to close. During those long months, when the whole country was fighting COVID, families and lives thrown into chaos, people dying from the virus, people losing their jobs, businesses collapsing. Someone I knew kept posting pictures of their passive income every day, taking their kids out to eat, to play, buying luxury goods. That was Linda. Years ago. I met her when she had just opened a tiny coconut water stand on the corner of the street. She was thin, with a gentle smile, but her eyes held a quiet, unshakable strength. She once told me she had left her wealthy husband to start over from zero because she didn't want to live dependent on anyone. But this time, Linda was different. I couldn't help but be curious, so I picked up the phone and called her. "What are you doing now to be doing so well?" she whispered. "I invest. There's a project from Singapore. I put in $10,000 and I can withdraw both principal and interest every day. No selling, nothing hard. If you join, I guarantee you'll win." Her voice was soft, but the words rang in my head like church bells. First month already made a profit, principal and interest. So easy. Guaranteed win. This time, it was a completely new field for me. I knew nothing about it, but from the way she described it and seeing the life she now had, I was drawn in. I spent more time researching the project. It truly seemed promising. A few days later, I put in all the money I had left, borrowed another $10,000 at a high interest rate to invest in it. The first month, everything went exactly as planned. I felt I was on the right path. I even started calculating. If this keeps going, in just a few months, I could buy a house. I could give my parents a life of comfort. But the next month, bad news hit, like a storm tearing off a thatched roof. Competitors and dirty media attacks dragged the project into scandal, and it couldn't go on. The money I'd put in froze, then vanished like foam in the sea. This time, I lost 10 times more than before. And yet, I didn't scream. I didn't smash things. I just sat there, staring at the black phone screen, my finger swiping up and down without thinking, hoping for some miracle. Nothing. Just a dark screen, and inside me, an endless empty space. I went back to the hotel to ask for a job with no place to live. I crashed at a friend's house, borrowed an old beat-up motorbike to get to work. 2 months later, before sunrise, I was riding around a bend when a truck came out of nowhere. The screech of brakes. Then everything went black. When I woke, I was in a hospital bed. My leg was in a cast, my throat dry and bitter, the sharp smell of antiseptic, the hollow sound of nurses' footsteps in the hallway. The doctor said I'd be bedridden for at least 3 months, and there was no guarantee I'd walk normally again. One thought kept repeating in my head, if I can't work, how will I survive? Old debts unpaid, interest piling up day after day, surgery, medicine, food, all hanging over me like a boulder about to fall. Some nights, I stared at the blinding white ceiling and tears just streamed down. I thought, maybe this is the end for me. Not because I feared pain, but because I had run out of hope. But just when I was ready to give up, a message appeared. It was from an old guest, from the hotel where I used to work. When he heard what happened, he came to visit me. He encouraged me and gently said, don't worry about the bills. I'll lend you $20,000, 3 years to pay back. No interest. All I ask is that you promise to get back on your feet. His voice was deep, steady, but each word anchored me like a rope thrown to someone drowning. It felt like he was a messenger sent by God to save me. I was truly moved, deeply grateful. I used the money to clear my debts. 6 months later, when I could walk again, I borrowed another $5,000 from him to open a small shop. A year later, he gave me another $50,000 to expand my business. It was the first time in my life I held such a large sum in my hands. It felt like hot blood rushing through my veins, my heart pounding hard. I felt more confident than ever. I thought, once you have money, opportunities multiply. I wouldn't miss a single chance again. And yes, the world is small. Soon after, I ran into both Eric and Linda again. They both had new projects. They spoke with so much confidence that I believed these were chances I couldn't pass up. But this time, I didn't put all my eggs in one basket. I invested only $5,000 in each. A few months later, Linda's project collapsed under new government restrictions. Eric's fell apart in a financial scandal. I lost almost everything. Those days, I sat alone in my dim rented room. Wind hissed through the crack in the door. Streetlights spilled in, stretching my shadow long and twisted across the wall. One thought kept repeating in my mind, I still have some capital. Last time I lost because of greed. This time, I just want to win back what I lost. Then I'll stop. I won't be greedy anymore. It's the fastest way to recover, with nothing else to hold on to. I went back to that online game. 2 months later, my $30,000 was gone. I didn't cry. I didn't curse. I just sat, listening to the ticking clock. Each tick like a countdown for a life, running out. I remembered every failure, remembered nights with swollen red eyes from losing it all, remembered my parents' eyes when they received the money I sent, remembered the salty sweat on my back after long shifts at work, and I realized I'd been wrong for a very long time. I no longer chased fast money. I learned to listen, to the whisper of money, a sound not for the impatient or the greedy, but for those who are patient, hardworking, and respectful of it. I understood. The biggest losses come from greed. The fastest failures happen when you lack experience, and the deepest pain is when love and money get tangled together. Now, when I face a new opportunity, I no longer ask, how much can I make? I ask, how much am I willing to lose to learn this lesson? And most of the time, I choose to slow down, because sometimes slow is the fastest way to get where you want to be. And the safest way to make money is to increase your own value so that money finds you like a loyal friend who never wants to leave. If today you've listened to my whole story, maybe you'll see. The things that cost me the most were not specific amounts of money, but 3 things: greed, ignorance, and living without financial principles. I threw myself into things I didn't understand just because they promised fast and easy. I never set limits for how much I could lose. So when I lost, I doubled down, even with money I didn't have, hoping to recover it. And many times, I risked my own safety and my family's to chase an opportunity that was never meant for me. If you are somewhere on the path I once walked, remember 3 things. First, never put money into something you can't clearly explain how it makes a profit. If it takes too long for you to understand, it's not for you. Second, always know how much you're willing to lose before you start. And when you hit that limit, stop. Even if your heart screams, just a little more. Third, build your foundation before you build your dreams. An emergency fund to cover at least 6 months of living, a stable source of income, and a skill you fully own. Because money doesn't run to the reckless. It finds those who are patient, knowledgeable, and respectful enough to keep it. And if one day you find yourself standing before a dazzling opportunity, ask yourself, what price am I willing to pay to learn this lesson? It took me years, large sums of money, and standing at the edge of despair many times to understand that I hope you won't have to walk through the same trail of blood and tears to learn it too. If this story touched you, leave a comment and share your thoughts. And if you have a story you want the world to hear, send it to my channel's email. Who knows? Your story might be the guiding light for someone out there.